Charlie Hebdo cartoonists spoke to Charlie Rose, and they distanced themselves from the Muhammad cartoon contest in Texas, which was attacked a few days ago. Let's watch.
Tell me about your reaction to what happened in Texas.
To be honest, I can imagine the kind of comparison you can make between the Charlie Hebdo attack on January 7 and this event, but there is nothing to do.
Yeah.
No comparison,
no comparison.
Absolutely no comparison possible. You have, as you said, a sort of anti-Islamic movement,
right.
you know, a very harsh movement against what you call the Islamization of the US. The problem of Charlie Hebdo is absolutely not the same. It was just a question of criticizing, you know, all the kind of religion, and not Muslim people in particular, or Catholic people. It has nothing to do with that, really.
We don't organize contests. We just do our work. We comment the news. When Muhammad jump out of the news, we draw Muhammad. But if he didn't, we didn't. We don't.
So that's really interesting, because what they're saying is, don't compare us. We don't like them. They're nothing like us. They're bad people. We're not bad people. So easy on those comparisons, because you got to look into everything else that went into this in order to get the full picture and the full context. Now, I'm actually, overall, I'm 50-50 on this, because part of it makes sense. The other part of it, I think, is weaselly and misleading. So they're right in the sense that the group which hosted the Muhammad cartoon contest in Texas, they are, let's face it, right-wing douches. They just are. Doesn't mean they should be attacked under any circumstance. They shouldn't. But, Pam Geller is a right-wing asshole. She thinks Obama's a Manchurian candidate. She thinks Obama's a Muslim. She doesn't support a UN resolution which condemns Muslim killing in Burma. She's got all these insane policy positions and all these counterfactual beliefs, and she's an extremist in her own right. So that's one of the things they're getting at there, is like, these guys are right-wing douches. We're not. So let's keep that in perspective. Also, what they're saying is, we attack all religions. They don't. A lot of the people who are in bed with Pam Geller on this political issue, they are fundamentalist Christians. So they scream for the religious right to draw pictures of Muhammad, but they all got mad back in the day when there was an art contest and somebody put a Jesus cross into a bucket of piss. That's not okay in their opinion, but it is okay to draw a picture of Muhammad. Same thing, Pam Geller, marched against the creation of a mosque near Ground Zero. So she was totally against that. So wait a second, you're going to claim religious freedoms to draw Muhammad, but you were against the religious freedom of a mosque to be set up somewhere near where the World Trade Centers were. Well, then you're a hypocrite, because you're for religious freedom when it's for you, but you're against it when it's for somebody else. So that's another thing they're getting at here. We criticize all religions. They single out Muslims, and they're hypocrites in that respect. And also, they're essentially saying we do satire. Meanwhile, the point of the Muhammad cartoon contest, it wasn't to do satire first, and then it just so happens that people get offended. What they did in Texas is they were trying to offend. That was the point of doing it. So, in those areas, I think it's fair for them to say there's a distinction. You can't just lump us in because we're not exactly the same. We're very different in very substantive ways. So I agree with them on that. The part where I think they're being weaselly is when they say there's no comparison. Of course there's a comparison. You guys drew Muhammad, and there was a terrorist attack where people killed you because you drew Muhammad. At this Muhammad cartoon contest, people were attacked because they drew Muhammad. Of course there's a comparison. To say there's not a comparison is to deny the major fact which took place in both cases. Now, look, the reason why that it's a little frustrating is because I know that they're not, of course they're not in favor of the people in Texas being attacked for drawing Muhammad. They drew Muhammad. They're clear on where they stand on that issue. But I'm pleading to liberals today. You gotta stress that point anyway, because that is the most important point. People are allowed to be scumbags and bigots and right-wing assholes, and they're allowed to be hypocrites. You're allowed to be a hypocrite, right? That's not punishable by time in jail or death. So with that being said, even though it's utterly clear I disagree with Pam Geller on every single political issue, and I think she's a dumb person, of course I'm going to defend her right to draw Muhammad cartoons, and I'm obviously going to stand up for these people to say what they say and do what they do. Again, it's pathetic that they're hypocrites and they don't view other people as having a right to make fun of Jesus and to mock him in their own way. And of course, unfortunately, this is a group of people that they are for war and they are for all these horrific policies which exacerbate the problem. But not focusing on any of those at all, because we could have a separate conversation about those and one in which I disagree with them completely. The main operative point in this situation is they are the victims of a terrorist attack. And everybody should unite and stand together and say, I'm going to defend the stupid people here. Remember, it's the great Voltaire quote, I don't believe in what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. I mean, for fuck's sake, man, the Supreme Court, when they were very principled for a brief period, do you guys realize that they ruled on the side of the KKK to march through a predominantly Jewish neighborhood in a peaceful way, to spread their message of hatred and bigotry and insanity, wearing the goofy outfits with the white hoods? And the Supreme Court said, you have a right to walk through this majority Jewish town. And that's the dedication that we have to the idea of freedom of speech. That's how far we're willing to go, where we look at a group that is essentially a terrorist organization, and we say, as long as you're not actually doing violence, yes, you can march down the street and say the most hateful, bigoted things. And by the way, who defended the KKK in that case? The ACLU. So, again, that shows you where their dedication is. Their dedication really is to constitutional principles. And like I said yesterday, the U.S. does not have a state religion. But if we were to say we have a state religion, it would be the religion of freedom of speech. So you're allowed to be an asshole, you're allowed to be a douchebag, you're allowed to be a bigot, you're allowed to be factually dead wrong about everything you say ever. That doesn't mean people can throw you in jail, and that certainly doesn't give a green light for people to kill you because in their mind they think that you're offending their ideology. It doesn't fucking matter if your ideology was offended. That's the whole purpose of having a principle of freedom of speech in place. So yes, the Charlie Hebdo guys are right when they say, there's not much of a comparison here because they're right-wing assholes, we're not. We attack all religions, they don't. They single out Islam. We do satire, they don't. They're trying to offend. They're right about all those things. But where they're wrong is overly distancing and not saying, even with all that, fuck, you gotta stand up on their side because they are the victims here. To focus only on them as if they're the only people who did something wrong or if they invited it, that's essentially victim blaming, and we should all be against that.